Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Carvalho, and with me is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's Chief of Staff and Attorney George Carvalho. No relation. How you doing?
Hi, Matthew. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. All right. So my first question for you is, what is it that made you want to become a lawyer and get into law?
Well, I guess I had been going through college, and I was probably in maybe my first or second year of college, and I had taken some law classes. I was at Roger Williams University, and I really liked the classes. I really enjoyed it, and I started to think about going to law school. I finished at Roger Williams, and was determined to go to law school, but I think, like many students today, and that occurred even back then when I was in college, financially it just wasn't going to work for me. So I decided to work for a couple of years, save some money, and I was able to save enough to get through law school, and I went to law school at Michigan State University, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm glad that I did it, and I'd encourage anybody who is interested in the law to look at that opportunity.
And now, a lot of people that study law, they end up taking the bar exam, and they all say it's very difficult. When you took the bar exam, what are your thoughts on people's opinions on its difficulty? How difficult was it for you?
Well, it is. It's I always say it's not rocket science, but it's a lot of material. Some of the material is complex, some of it not as complex. But it's really a matter of putting in the time to study for the bar. But that doesn't begin when you graduate from law school. In order, I think, to do well on the bar, you have to have that foundation. So you have to have put in the time over the 3 years of law school and understand the basic principles, let's say, of contract or criminal law or torts or property, whatever the subject may be. So you have to have that basic knowledge of it. And then really when you're studying for the bar, it shouldn't be that you're learning those concepts for the first time. It should be that you're refreshing your memory, and you're maybe putting in more time to get a better understanding of it. So, because it's so much material that potentially could be on the bar exam that you just don't have time to try to be learning all that. It really should just be a refresher, and then memorizing and understanding the concepts. I was fortunate enough to pass 2 bars. I took the Massachusetts bar first, and I really got to be honest, I didn't think I did well. I was very nervous. I thought that I had completely botched it, but I did well, and I passed the bar. So you take the multi-state on one day, and then you take the state bar the next day. And I ended up doing well on both. And then the following opportunity, I took the Rhode Island bar, and fortunately I passed that. So, but you have to put the time in to study, but it's not, the concepts are learnable.
And now, as a lawyer, what would you say was the strangest case you've ever been involved in? Because you told me on the phone you've been involved in pretty much all sorts of different cases.
Yeah. God, that's a pretty. I wasn't thinking about that. I mean, I did all kinds of stuff. I did criminal work. I did divorce work. I did employment law. I started out mainly in employment law in Boston. The divorce cases were always, I guess, interesting. Sometimes sad to see, a family break apart, and how it affects the children. So those always, had an emotional angle to it. I think, criminal law, I was very interested in. I enjoyed it. I did have some characters, guys who you get them out one day, and then the next day they're back in the ACI because they've violated the terms of their probation or their bail. I'm sorry. To one case in particular, I can't really pinpoint one now, but I did have some characters that I represented over the years. So.
And now, what would you say was your worst defeat as a lawyer, and how do you think you should have done differently, and do you think you actually should have ended up winning that case?
I had a case in federal court once. It was what they call a 1983 case, and it basically was a person who had been, or the allegation was that my client had been beaten up excessively by the police department. I'm not going to say who the police department was, which police department, or who the attorney was, but I thought we had a decent case. We went in, and the case went to the jury, and it came back for the police officers. In that particular case, the attorney on the other side did a fantastic job. Very highly skilled attorney. He did a wonderful job, and I guess in that case probably just out-lawyered, to be honest with you. You know, he did a better job. I had another case that I tried with one of my partners at the time. It was a medical malpractice case, and we thought it was a very, clear-cut case of malpractice. I think the attorney on the other side, again, great attorney, did a great job of confusing the jury enough where the jury came back with a verdict for the doctors. So those are probably the two, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, where I was very disappointed. Probably more disappointed with the medical malpractice case, because I thought that one was definitely, and obviously that both clients had gone through some suffering, with their wounds. So, but those are the two that stick in my mind.
And when it comes to winning a case, what is your philosophy to winning a case in law?
I think like anything else, like I talked about earlier with the bar, is just being prepared. Doing your homework, doing all of your research, understanding and knowing your client, knowing the other side, and what the other side, the attorney on the other side, as well as the party on the other side, and just being thoroughly prepared, having prepared your client, if it's going to be a case that goes to trial, to make sure that your client's well prepared for when he or she goes on the stand, and that you're well prepared to encounter any things that come your way during the course of the trial.
And back to the judiciary branch, what would you consider the biggest problem with the judiciary branch?
Are you talking, I guess, on a national level or on a state level?
Well, we start with a state level first.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of problems here in Rhode Island. I think overall the courts are very good, have some very competent, skilled jurors on every facet, from the administrative adjudication court that handles the traffic violations, and then the district court, which handles smaller civil cases and misdemeanors. You get the workers' compensation court, which handles highly complex cases where workers have been injured and they're seeking compensation. So that involves a lot of medical training and understanding of the medical world by attorneys who are not trained to be doctors. The Superior Court has a very good bench, and they also hear complex criminal and civil cases at a little higher level in the district court, and of course the Supreme Court, which is very made up of 5 very well-respected jurors. So I don't see a lot of problems here in the state court. I guess more so on the federal court, and in particular our Supreme Court, because of the tilt now, and again being a Democrat, being not as conservative as some of the justices that are on the Supreme Court, but 5 justices that are there that hold the majority. We've seen some decisions over the last few years which have been problematic, troubling decisions, and I don't unfortunately see that changing now until there is a change in the makeup of the court, which now with both houses of Congress being held with a Republican majority and the presidency being held by a Republican, you could have a number of years, with additional conservative justices being placed on the bench.
And now, you mentioned the president. Now, his lawyer said that he cannot be guilty of obstructing justice. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think he actually can be guilty of doing such?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think anybody can be guilty of obstructing justice if they are aware of, an investigation and they do something to alter or hide something that should be coming forward to the investigator. I think the investigation is ongoing of the administration. Former FBI Director Mueller is conducting that investigation. So I think I'd reserve comment on it, specifically now, and then see how it plays out. If you've been following the developments in last week or so, General Flynn pled guilty to 1 count of lying to the FBI. The consensus is that he's cooperating with the FBI, cooperating with FBI Director Mueller, and whether that leads to, or I should say, at what level that leads to in the administration, it's not clear yet. So I think we just got to keep our eye on it and see where it goes.
And now, do you think that the president can do anything about the whole problem with Russia and the hack?
I think that's the whole purpose of the investigation. I think it has to play out. I mean, it appears as though that there may be something there, but again, I think it needs to play out. And you have a very, very competent, very competent prosecutor in Director Mueller. Years of experience, and he does have the reputation of being a straight shooter, somebody who calls it as he sees it. He's not partisan. He was, I think he is registered as a Republican. Or maybe he was at one time, I don't know if he is now. He was appointed by Republicans and Democrats and served by them both Republicans and Democrats. So I guess from my point of view, he's somebody who doesn't have an axe to grind. I think he'll call it, he'll call balls and strikes, and the way he sees it, and wherever the evidence leads him. I've said this before because there are people who contact us here in our office who are impatient. They want the investigation to move faster, and they want to see a result now. But in any type of investigation of this nature, it needs to be done slowly, carefully, methodically, and everything needs to fall in place. It needs to be done the right way in order to produce a result that is truthful and that the American people will understand. So I don't see any reason for him to rush. He needs to do everything he needs to do to make sure that he's getting the most accurate information, and then we'll see where that leads.
Now, another big event that's happened, the CVS, they have bought the health insurance.
Yes.
Now, what do you think the legal implications that will have on the people in the economy?
Well, I mean, again, I from what I've read and what I've seen, and I have talked to some people about it, the main issue now that is being looked at, I guess, is to make sure that it doesn't that the transaction doesn't, or proposed transaction doesn't violate any antitrust laws where you're shutting other companies out of the market and limiting the access to consumers, which obviously hurts consumers. CVS is a great Rhode Island company. You know, I think from their standpoint, the way they're looking at it is, this would offer almost like a one-stop shopping where they would have, you know, prescriptions and healthcare coverage all in one package. They're also saying that this would create additional jobs, I think hundreds of jobs here in Rhode Island, which obviously is a good thing for our state, a good thing for our economy and for our residents. But obviously, you know, we have to make sure through the process that it doesn't do anything to hurt the consumers. So I think that, you know, we're always supportive of anything that CVS does, you know, as long as it's done the right way. So I think, you know, they have to meet those mandates of the process, and if it all works out where consumers are going to benefit from it, then it may end up being a good thing.
All right. Another event that's happened, there's this former lawyer who's been suspended. His name's Concannon, and he continues to file lawsuits and has gained national attention. Do you think he should be allowed to continue filing these lawsuits, or do you think something should be done to prevent these?
Well, I think that, you know, obviously he's subject to the bar or the Supreme Court rules, you know, in terms of being reprimanded for doing anything improper. So, you know, I think I'd leave it to them to make that decision as to, you know, what he can properly do or not do. And if he's practicing, and I don't know this to be the case, but if he's practicing, if he's not authorized to practice, then you know, obviously there's ramifications for there. But if he's bringing, you know, a case in his own right, nothing stops an individual from bringing a lawsuit, you know, on their own behalf. I can go into court. You can go into court at any point and file a lawsuit on your own behalf. Or just, you know, if you're not licensed to practice law, excuse me, in a state, you're prohibited from representing somebody else, but nothing says you can't represent yourself.
Now, another question is, a lot of lawyers end up coming into the field of politics, like yourself. What do you think are the major comparisons between being a lawyer and being a politician that draw many lawyers into the political spectrum?
Well, I think, I'll speak for myself, but I think it may carry over to other folks as well, is, you know, when you're practicing law and when you're in the political area, your job basically is to help people and to try to make their lives better, or to try to hopefully help them correct a mistake they've made, or correct something that they've done wrong. So I've always enjoyed doing that. When I practiced law, that was the biggest, you know, piece I enjoyed, was getting a good result for somebody who may have been injured, or somebody who you know, was going through a rough time, and we were able to get her benefits, or, you know, things of that nature. And we do a lot of that here in this office. A big part of our work here in the Senate, you know, besides the policy and besides the legislative work, but a big part is helping our constituents, who may be having difficulty on a federal level. What I mean by that is they're applying Social Security benefits or Social Security disability, and they're not getting a response from the Social Security Administration. Or if they're applying for a visa and they're not getting a response. We had a lot of casework, unfortunately, back in 2010 when we had the major floods here in Rhode Island, and also we've had since then hurricanes, Hurricane Irene and others, that where people have had their homes destroyed and had significant damages as a result of that. and when they applied to FEMA, not getting the responses that they wanted or not getting responses back, they contact us, we get involved. We cannot influence the final decision, but we can ask them to expedite a decision, especially if somebody's in a hardship situation. So we do all kinds of things. We've handled, during the mortgage crisis, we had people who were contacting us because they were trying to, get assistance from Fannie Mae and others, basically to renegotiate the terms of their mortgage so that they could keep their home. So we had a lot of cases during that time. And again, unfortunately, during that time, a lot of the banks were just not being responsive to the people who were applying. So we were able to help out some people and help them keep in their homes, because people wanted to. It was a difficult time because you had situations where you had husband and wives, because the economy was not good, who both lost their jobs. So it wasn't as though they wanted to stop paying their mortgage; they just didn't have the ability to pay because they lost their job, because the economy was going going down the drain. So we were able to help some folks get through that difficult time.
And now that you're in like the political spectrum, have you ever considered maybe getting more into the elected field and maybe running for something, or do you prefer more staying more behind the scenes here?
Well, I don't have any plans to run for office. I ran for office back in 1997. I lived in Pawtucket. I grew up in Pawtucket. And I came back from law school and bought a house there. And I ran in 1998 for council at large against a number of people. I forgot how many ran that year. But then in the end, after I made it through the primary, and it came down to a few of us, and one of them being then council candidate, and eventually Councilor Don Brevian, who's now mayor of Pawtucket. We have a joke. We've become very good friends since that election. We talk often. I have a joke with him saying that that's the best thing that ever happened to me, that he beat me and he ended up on the council, and I did probably one of the best things that ever happened to Pawtucket. But I have no plans to run. I like what I'm doing. I think that doing the day-to-day work and running the office and advising Senator Whitehouse is where I'd like to be at this point.
And now, speaking of Senator Whitehouse, I wanted to have your thoughts on this. He recently called Kathleen Herod White, I believe her name was, compared her to a horse. What was your opinion on that? And what do you think the implications are going to be for the senator as well as the entire staff here for his comment?
Yeah, I don't think. Well, first of all, I disagree with the characterization that he was comparing her to a horse. I think that he was the point he was trying to make was that she was one of a number of nominees by the Trump administration that were not qualified for the position. And he wanted to convey that the Senate should not just rubber stamp the appointment, but that they should look to somebody who is qualified, truly qualified for the appointment. So I think the comparison was with Caligula nominating his horse to the Senate. It wasn't the comparison to the horse, but it was more that the Senate needed to step to the plate and not just rubber stamp another Trump nominee that wasn't qualified for the position, in his opinion.
And now, speaking of people that Trump has nominated, I want to have your thoughts on, as a lawyer, your thoughts on Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his job performance for about the past year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he served with Sheldon in the Senate. and, it was the same type of, I think same, or similar scenario to the nominee um, that you just referenced in terms of his qualifications and also his record on civil rights and other issues in the past, which you know caused some doubt in senators' minds whether he was the right person for the job. And I think his performance up to this point is, he's had some bumps in the road, which, and then the other issue is his independence from the administration. That a position like that, Department of Justice, the Attorney General, the Director of the FBI, though it is true that those positions are appointed by the President, and then they are, subject to confirmation by the Senate. But historically, the FBI Director, the Attorney General, once they're appointed, they do not report to the President in the classic sense of another director. There has to be independence, and there has to be an understanding by the President that he or she cannot pick up the phone and tell the Attorney General or the FBI Director, this is who you need to investigate, this is who you need to prosecute, this is who you need not to prosecute, or I want you to back off on this investigation. Can't happen. Can't happen. It's never happened in this country before. And I think with some of the things that occurred in this administration with Jeff Sessions and also with the firing of FBI Director Comey have raised some suspicion of whether there is the level of independence in this current administration between the President and those agencies as compared to prior administrations.
And so do you think maybe there should be a change with the Attorney General, like get someone else in there, or do you think he should just try to be more, as you said, independent, try to fix things?
Well, yeah, I think that's what he needs to do is to, to demonstrate that he's doing that, to create the confidence in government and with the American people that he truly is independent and that he is not carrying out the orders of the administration, the President and the administration.
And now my last question is, what advice would you give to someone, say like a youth that would be considering getting into the political spectrum? What advice would you give to someone like that?
Sure. I think if you're young, somebody like you, if you're interested in politics at whatever level, volunteer. One of the things I did often when I was young was volunteer on campaigns. Stuffing envelopes, holding signs, going door to door with the candidate. And then also there are internship opportunities. I know we have them here in our office, and the rest of the delegation offers internship. The governor's office, the General Assembly, all the elected general offices offer internship opportunities where a student, mainly college students, but we do in our office have high school students who come in occasionally, and get to work on some of the stuff that we're doing here in the office. So it's a great experience. So yeah, get involved, volunteer, and there was one young person in particular, I think he wouldn't mind if I mentioned his name, was Mayor Jimmy Diosa from Central Falls, who started out as an intern here when he was in college. And he finished college, and he and I used to talk often about politics, and then the next thing I knew, he was running for city council, and he won. And then shortly after that, he ran for mayor, and he won. And he's one of the best mayors that we have in the state right now. So I think this is a good story, for young people to follow.
All right, well, that concludes the interview, but I'd
Thank
like to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
You too.